Joe Biden is not doing too well in the polls. He dropped under 40% for the average of polling just recently. The average. So it was 38, 39, something like that, approval rating for his average, which is, that's disastrous. That's disastrous. And he's there because he's not doing much. He's not like, early on when he had his highest approval rating ever, what did he do? He cut a check to people. He cut a $1,400 check to people. Now that, by the way, was less than what he said he would do. He said he'd do $2,000. But still, at the end of the day, people saw the federal government, Joe Biden, cutting a check for $1,400, and they were like, I like this guy. He was over 50% approval rating. Well, what have you done for me lately? The answer is Dickie McGee's axe. So, since he's been floundering, I guess he's trying to find ways like, what can I do to try to up my approval rating? And he came up with this gimmick in regards to the crisis, the starvation, the famine in Afghanistan. See, ever since the Taliban took over, the U.S. responded to that by saying, okay, we're going to freeze all of the funds for the Afghan government. They had about $9 billion worth, and the Fed said, okay, they're not going to be able to access any of this money now. So it's yours, but now it's ours. We stole it because the Taliban government is illegitimate. They overthrew the government. They're not going to have access to these funds. Now, you might look at that and say, well, it makes sense. You don't want the Taliban having those funds. The problem is there's a lot of civilians in Afghanistan, and that money goes towards feeding them and making sure they don't die. And so now we're facing a starvation crisis with millions of people, severe malnutrition, starvation. It's terrible. It's terrible. So what does Biden do? Well, let me go ahead and throw this up and you can see. New York Times, breaking news. President Biden is moving to split $7 billion in frozen Afghan central bank assets between 9/11 victims' families and humanitarian aid in Afghanistan. The highly unusual set of moves is expected to be announced on Friday. So yes, that was already announced. He's splitting the money between 9/11 families in Afghanistan. And he released this statement that, all about like, they're looking for justice and we need to follow through for them. So $3.5 billion is going to the families of 9/11 victims, and $3.5 billion is going towards Afghanistan. Now, just so you know, that money is not going to avert all the starvation. It's not. There's still going to be people who are severely malnourished and are going to die. That's going to happen. A lot of people are dirt poor in Afghanistan. So he thinks this is some brilliant, high-minded political move, which people are going to look at and give him credit for. I haven't seen a single person give him credit. Because this is nothing but a political virtue signal. Guys, Afghanistan had nothing to do with 9/11. Nothing. Osama bin Laden from Al-Qaeda was involved in 9/11. Osama bin Laden hid in Afghanistan for some period of time. We don't know exactly how long, because when he was eventually killed, he was in Pakistan. But the Taliban nominally allowed Osama bin Laden to stay in Afghanistan. And so now Afghanistan is being punished by half of their assets being given to 9/11 families. So in other words, in the year 2022, women and children and Afghan civilians are going to have to suffer, starve, and die because Joe Biden wants to do a political virtue signal. This is unbelievable. The only reason why he's not giving all of the money to Afghanistan is because he's terrified of the right saying to him, Joe Biden is giving $7 billion to the Taliban because he's pro-Taliban Joe. He's simply afraid of that political attack, so he won't do the thing that we all know is the right thing that would save so many lives. How pathetic is that? Honestly, this is not much different from that story we just covered on Crystal Kyle and Friends about how Biden caved to the free crack pipe smear. Tucker Carlson and a bunch of right-wingers went out there and made this argument of like, oh, now we're giving away free crack pipes. The federal government is, and these democratic states are. And would you look at that? They want free crack pipes for everybody. How disgusting is that? What they're not telling you is this is a proven harm reduction strategy where you have safe injection sites and safe drug use sites, and they set it up in New York just recently, and over the course of 2 months, they saved like 100 or 200 lives already. So, yes, when you have professionals there, people don't overdose. When you have clean drug paraphernalia, people don't spread around disease that rips through the community. Now, I look at that, and originally I was against the harm reduction approach, but then when I saw the data, I was like, oh, the data's clear. If I actually care about saving lives, preventing overdoses, and preventing the spread of disease, this is a no-brainer, and we know it works. There's endless evidence of it. They have it in a bunch of other countries. But the right decided to caricature it and smear it as free crack pipes. So flippant, so derisive, so pathetic. And Joe Biden immediately comes out and says, no, we're not, no, there's no crack pipes. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know what you're talking about. Free crack pipes. And so basically they lied and were like, no, there are no free crack pipes in there, so shut up. And then eventually they were like, all right, maybe there are, but we're going to now ban the free crack pipe part of it. So it's just scared of his own shadow, scared to make a political argument. But honestly, with Joe Biden, it is ideological. On that front, he's a drug warrior, so he doesn't like it either, even though we know it saves lives, even though we know it's a policy that works. So what does he do? He throws everybody under the bus, sentences people to die, which is exactly what's going to happen. Same thing here with Afghanistan. 9/11 victims' families. The Afghan civilians have nothing to do with that. The Taliban had nothing to do with it. The Taliban is not Al-Qaeda. They are different groups. The Taliban is a guerrilla army with domestic priorities. Al-Qaeda is a global jihadist organization. They're different groups. Doesn't matter. None of it matters. So sorry, some of you are going to have to starve. You're going to have malnutrition and famine and all these problems, and I'm going to sit by idly and watch it for a political virtue signal to give half of the money that belongs to Afghanistan to 9/11 victims' families. Cowardice, pathetic, cheap virtue signal, disgusting, man. Disgusting. People will die as a result of it. So let's create more victims so I can pretend like I came up with this clever, brilliant idea, which isn't at all clever or brilliant, and is actually stupid. Democrats are going to get obliterated, and they deserve it. And by the way, just so you know, hear me now, quote me later, I'm sure there are some right-wingers, some Republican politicians who are going to come out and say, Joe Biden just gave $3.5 billion to the Taliban. Why'd you do that, Joe? So here Joe thinks he came up with a clever way to avert that criticism. They're still going to make the criticism. And he's not going to respond the way he should respond. He's not going to respond and say, this is to make it so civilians don't die. He's not going to respond like that. So anyway, there you have it. Our political landscape is a living hell, and this story highlights it incredibly well. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.